This conflict will most probably end up with some compromise. NATO membership is not an issue for a couple of months. It will need a longer time. It sounds like a cliche, but I truly believe that we are doing it from a large extent to ourselves. The extent of temporary will be a question.
President, good to see you here, and thank you for being with us. And let me start from a difficult question. Do you really believe that there is a military threat not only to Ukraine, but further to Europe, to EU and NATO member states?
Well, of course I do. In fact, being most of my professional life in military, I was pretty sure where the risks for Europe and for democracies come from. And within the last, let's say, 20 years, the biggest threat to European security was and still is Russia. So I think it is quite clear that without significant change in Russian leadership and Russian approach to international politics, Russia will continue being a threat to European democracies.
That's good that you know that, but do you really believe that other European politicians and the most important ordinary people do get that this threat is real?
I would argue that most of European politicians and quite a large part of the population is aware of Russian threat. Of course, the closer to Russia the country is, the more imminent they see the threat. Quite naturally, people living in Portugal, for example, would perceive Russian threat differently than Estonia. But in general, it is obvious to everyone that there is no bigger single threat in Europe than Russia.
You were among the first politicians in Europe to say that Ukraine should prepare to end the war not with victory, probably not restoring its full territorial control. That time, hardly anyone believed you, and many people just declined to accept that.
It was quite obvious that if Western countries were not able, from good reasons, to come up to assist Ukraine by combat forces, because that would really mean a war between NATO and Russia, it was only on material support, and the material support was not that big to allow Ukraine a swift victory in this war. Ukraine was only relying on its own human resources, because these are limited and, of course, much smaller than Russian human resources. And that led me to a conclusion that if there is no real will to provide much more military support, and with limited personnel, it will be impossible for Ukraine without huge losses to succeed in liberating territories that are occupied by Russia. And that's why my quite realistic assessment was that this conflict, without changing the parameters, will most probably end up with some compromise. And now we are heading to such a compromise, but I believe that the compromise solution shouldn't be recognition of occupied territories as rightfully Russian, but as a reality on the ground that part of territory of Ukraine is and will for some time be temporarily occupied by Russia.
Was there any realistic chance to avoid that? Possibly if United States would provide us with much more rapid military support with larger scale of military support. If, for instance, Trump would take another policy towards Russia, would there be a chance to win?
Even before Ukraine started its big counteroffensive 2 years ago, it was not well equipped to really succeed. Because for successful offensive, The military theory says that you need a ratio at least 3 or preferably 5 to 1. And that time, the force ratio between Ukraine and Russia was still in favor of Russia. So it was quite obvious that counteroffensive will not be as successful to liberate all the territories. So we are where we are now, and I think what we need to do is maintain supporting Ukraine to an extent that it is able to maintain the territory, not to lose any further one, and create very soon conditions for ceasefire and subsequent peace.
You say that Ukraine should not recognize that we have lost territories. These territories remains Ukrainian, at least by law. But do you see a realistic chance for us to return Crimea and Donbas and all other territories?
Well, if you look around the globe, there are a number of territories that are occupied by another country and are not legally recognized as their own. So it may take some time, but I believe that as a matter of principle, if we want to maintain the rules-based international order, where principles like territorial integrity and sovereignty matter, then we simply cannot accept the fact that the aggressor will be rewarded by being granted legal ownership of occupied territories. That's why we don't have any other option than not to recognize it and declare it at maximum as temporarily occupied. But of course, the extent of temporary will be a question.
Unfortunately, we see that the world is changing and world order is changing. And the United States, well, are you so much sure that they would not recognize Ukrainian territories as Russian, given what has happened already?
Well, it's very difficult to judge what will be the approach of the United States, because we have seen so many unexpected moves that it's more and more difficult. But I still believe that the United States don't want to abandon the rules-based international order, because it protects us all, including the United States.
Let's imagine that the peace is almost there and we have to define what are security guarantees that prevent next attack. What do you see as a possible way to guarantee Ukrainian security?
I see guarantees for Ukraine basically twofold. One will be an agreement with the United States. We can call it briefly mineral agreement, but the very
does it help really?
Well, in practical terms, if there is American presence, not military but business presence and business interests present in Ukraine, you can expect that these interests will be protected, and another part of guarantees will come from European countries that declared willingness to support Ukraine. And now we talk mostly about newly organized coalition of willing countries that are able and willing to deploy some stabilizing force to Ukraine once a peace agreement is achieved.
And you see Czech Republic as part of this?
Well, we are part of this coalition now, and I believe that once we come to an understanding that there is common will to deploy the forces, that Czech Republic will be part of it.
You mean even peacekeepers from Czech Republic are possible? Because we have heard some skeptical thoughts from Prague.
Different politicians may have different views, but if there is a strong group of European nations willing to provide a security guarantee to Ukraine, my strong conviction is that Czech Republic should be among them. I know that it sounds like a cliche, but I truly believe that we are doing it from a large extent to ourselves.
And I have to ask about NATO. You did not refer to it among those security guarantees, despite you believe that it would be a cheapest one. You have said that even today. do you think that it's not realistic for us to count on that?
We have seen American president discarding the option of early membership of Ukraine in NATO. If it is to be an obstacle in achieving a peace agreement, let be it, because NATO membership is not an issue for a couple of months. It will need a longer time. But my recommendation would be let's not put off the table. So let's have it as an open issue for the future, because politicians come and go, and the administration will be different in 3 years. So we may see a different view with new administration. And in the meantime, we will all work with Ukraine on reconstruction, on more interoperability. We will exchange experience from this conflict. We will build new Ukrainian capabilities, and all these steps will bring Ukraine closer to European partners, who will eventually may become allies.
I would even not exclude that there would be a new kind of NATO, a European one, given what US shows. US can even quit this continent.
Do you think that it is in the interest of the United States to have a strong ally in Europe? Because if the United States see China as a main systemic rival, it will always be better for them to have Europe by side than left behind. So we will always work on the assumption that together we are stronger, and it will be valid even in the future.
Thank you very much for that interview.